Survivor Series 1994. Obviously, this pay-per-view takes place in the New Generation era, which was a rough time for everyone involved, including the viewers. And, because Survivor Series 94 takes place in that era, it's going to have that stigma where they're going to say, oh, 1994, gonna stay away from that. But I feel like this pay-per-view is actually really good and underrated. When you hear Survivor Series 94 and you haven't seen it before, obviously you're going to be a little rough around the edges about it. But I'm actually going to really recommend this one. So go give it a chance. And this was great because it had only 5 matches, which I always prefer quality over quantity. Nowadays we have like 10 to 12 matches on a pay-per-view. I'd rather see 5 really good matches. And the opening contest, we had the bad guys, which was the 1-2-3 Kid, the British Bulldog, Fatu, Razor Ramon, and Sione, defeating the Teamsters. Diesel, Jeff Jarrett, Jim Neidhart, Owen Hart, and Shawn Michaels. And this match was really setting up Diesel. And really just kind of setting up WrestleMania 11's WWE Championship match between Shawn Michaels and Diesel, which to me is the only redeeming quality of WrestleMania 11. So, it's really setting up that dynamic. They're kind of having that split and starting that rivalry. And it's really cool to see a storyline starting at Survivor Series and going all the way up to WrestleMania. So that's good building right there. And it's a good match. It's 21 minutes and 45 seconds. And, the ending may not be all that great. It ends with a count out, but, it's still a very good opener and setting a lot of stuff up. And then we have kind of the one damp spot on the card. We have the Royal Family, which I shit you not. It was Jerry Lawler with Cheesy, Queasy, and Sleazy. Defeating Clowns R Us, which was Dink, Doink, Pink, and Wink. I love Doink the Clown, but I like a heel Doink the Clown. And they honestly just made Doink look weak here. And I really think they should have just went over. You have Jerry Lawler's team winning for some reason. And this went 16 minutes and 5 seconds. And honestly, that's 16 minutes I will never get back of my life. And I feel like I should sue Jerry Lawler for that. But like I said, Doink the Clown, I thought he was always great. I don't think he works as good as a babyface. But, I always just love heel Doink the Clown. I always thought it was perfect. And then we have Bob Backlund with Owen Hart versus Bret Hart with the British Bulldog. And this was for the WWF Championship, and this was a submission match. And this is an interesting dynamic because you have a heel Bob Backlund. 10 years, he hasn't been in the company for, around a decade here. And as you know, he was WWF, Worldwide Wrestling Federation champion. And for years, he had a really good run. I was never a big fan of face Bob Backlund, but I think he works better as a heel, which at the time a lot of people were skeptical about because he was that baby face for all that time. And this is a fantastic submission match. This went 35 minutes and 11 seconds. This is an example of letting a match flow and have a slow burn with a kick-ass ending. Basically, you'll have Owen Hart, the criminally underrated heel Owen Hart, begging to have the towel thrown in for Bret Hart, just working that heel magic and continuing on with that 1994 rivalry with Bret Hart. They may not be having a match here, but it's literally continuing that rivalry and, just fueling that dynamic between them. And then you have Bob Backlund winning back the WWF Championship after all this time. And like I said, I may not be the biggest Bob Backlund fan. I think Owen and Brett was a more interesting storyline than this. And this is obviously much better than the WrestleMania match that would come later on. But this is a kick-ass match. Like, this is definitely one worth watching. One of the most underrated matches in Survivor Series history. And then we have the $1 Million Team, which was Bam Bam Bigelow, Jimmy Del Rey, King Kong Bundy, Tatanka, and Tom Pritchard. Defeating Guts and Glory, Adam Bomb, Bart Gunn, Billy Gunn, Lex Luger, and Mabel. Kind of a forgettable match. You know, it's just kind of does its duty, to be honest. The 5-on-5 Survivor Series elimination match, which, as you know, I'm a huge fan of these elimination matches. But I think for this year, you didn't really have like a really kick-ass Survivor Series elimination match. You know, there was 3 on the card. The 4-on-4 was a doozy. The first one was really to set up that rivalry and really, you know, kickstart that storyline with Diesel and Shawn Michaels, which was already started before this, but this really put a dent in it. And then this one's just kind of here, you know. It's a good co-main event, but sort of forgettable. And then we have The Undertaker versus Yokozuna in a casket match with Chuck Norris as a special guest enforcer. Chuck Norris basically is there to roundhouse kick Jeff Jarrett. That's basically his service here and his duty for this pay-per-view, and he did it well. But if you know me well enough, I don't like casket matches, and I think more than anything, this really should not have been the main event. This was at a time where it was rare that the WWF title was not the main event, especially with Bret Hart being your champion at the time. It's very interesting that they went with this for the main event. I'm assuming it's just for the star power of Chuck Norris. But, you know, kind of predictable. Undertaker and Yokozuna, 2 great talents. But like I said, the casket match, you can only do so much, and it was never interesting to me. But in its defense, this is one of the better casket matches, which in hindsight isn't saying much, but trust me, it's definitely one worth checking out if you want to watch a decent casket match. But overall letter grade for this show, I'm going to give this a B. It is a very underrated Survivor Series at a time where it kind of deserves to be underrated. You know, it's the new generation era. You know, it's a rough time. But this is kind of a bright spot in that era. So definitely go check this one out. Give me your thoughts down below. For now, this has been the DVD Freak. Peace out.